Salam alaikum and hello everyone. My name is Razial. You can call me Raz. I hope you all are doing well and having a great time. I want to give this disclaimer first. This topic was in the making since mid-June 2025. This topic is very important for me and I wanted to make sure I do enough research before I move forward, especially for my other Muslim artists out there. And I want to add this. If you are not comfortable with talking about religion or anything related, you can always click away from this video. Nobody will be upset or mad at you if you do. It is your right to stay or to leave. Nobody has the right to tell you what you can or cannot. I'm not trying to sound like I am forcing my religion down on anyone's throat. This video is open for the public and for anyone who is interested or just would like to listen. Now, without further ado, let's get started. This was never an easy topic to start writing and researching for because it's never been black and white and there has been a lot of changes since then. You need to understand that art itself is not haram. First, allow me to explain what is haram and halal means so we all be in the same page. Haram is an Arabic term that translated to forbidden or prohibited in Islam. Think of something like a sin in Christianity, like murder, stealing, adultery, etc., etc. And the exact opposite of haram is halal, which means awful, permissible or allowed in Islam. Eating certain things, wearing certain clothing, earning money in the most authentic way possible, etc. There is a lot of things in the world and a massive list of what is haram, what is halal. Before we continue, I want to say this. I will do my best to make this as simple and easy as possible. This part might be a bit long, but make sure you have a drink or a snack or anything that makes you comfortable because we're about to get into the fun part about all of this. Did you know that Islam has 4 schools? We call them madhahib. Every madhab is different, but stay with me on this one. All 4 schools want the truth. Shafi'i, Maliki, Hanbali, and Hanafi are all doctrines in following the truth and they follow the Quran and the Sunnah. May God be pleased with them and have mercy on them. But some of their followers are fanaticism, and so the doctrination of Al-Dahiriyya, which is a well-known 5th doctrine, and there are other doctrines that exist. However, they all became extinct. The important thing is to follow the truth. These false doctrines that we just talked about and those before them, their goals are to follow the truth. They maybe differ in 1 or 2 or 3 questions. So the scholar is famous for it, so he has campaigns and followers. So that doctrine is famous for this thing that this scientist has signed out in a question or 2 or 3 or more, in which he saw in it other than the opinion of his brother because of the evidence that may be hidden on this, and it is appeared in this, which are sub-issues that are often not related to the origins. But it is forbidden for a man to be fanatic about falsehood and not convinced of the truth from their followers. This is why they are approached for, otherwise the doctrines are known for. All of them want the truth, follow the book and the Sunnah, and aim to follow the book and the Sunnah and to be steadfast in what the Prophet, peace and blessing be upon him, brought. However, there have been a lot of gray areas lately in the past few years, and the scholars have been arguing and disagreeing in many things. Some things are not necessarily haram or halal, and some might fall under jaiz or makruh. They are a lower tier than haram and halal, but almost the same meaning. For example, drinking alcohol. Drinking it is straight up haram. However, using alcohol to clean a wound or clean dirty surfaces is jaiz. So, to put it in a clear picture, halal and jaiz are green, haram is red, makruh is yellow. There is no gray area in Islam, but in the case of doubt, there is a holy rule in Islam that was said in a hadith said by the Prophet, peace be upon him, that says, leave what makes you doubt for what does not make you doubt. I know this is just the start and we haven't got into the topic itself just yet. I wanted to make sure that things are completely clear. And listen, I'm an artist. Islam is my religion and I want to create many things while I'm still alive. And of course, many Muslim artists wish to have the chance to create what they love without feeling guilty or thinking they are crossing the line. So, as a self-taught Muslim artist who wish to have her own show, anime, movie, game, etc., I will go through all the mediums and genres that you and I have been seeing and inspired by over the years and see where do they fall in what category in Islam. And it won't be just one thing and throw it into one tile like everyone else is doing lately. We are going to look into animation, 3D modeling, VTubing, rigging, asset making, and all the things that we can think of. And yes, even personal silly things like fandom, fan fiction, shipping, and all in between, like I said. One more thing. If I hear one of you make a joke about how the 4 schools sounds like the 4 lords in Resident Evil Village, I will personally send Newcastle Big Boy to your house. Okay, jokes aside, if you're wondering what school I fall into, it is the Hanbali school. It is the toughest one of all the 4 one. If you are Muslim and you fall into a different school, make sure that you do your research and see if the things we are going to talk about fall under your school rules or not. Okay, let's start with a small history lesson. By following the Holy Quran, the scholars, and where they put the line for us, allow me to show you this amazing creator have in his video because I can't do justice by just talking about it.
You'll know what the Quran actually says, what the scholars actually disagreed on, and where the line really is for a Muslim trying to live their deen properly in 2026. Let's start with the Quran. Surah Saba, verse 13. Allah is speaking about the Prophet Sulaiman, peace be upon him, and Allah tells us that the jinn, working under Sulaiman's command by Allah's permission, made for him whatever he wanted. Lofty shrines, basins like reservoirs, cauldrons fixed in place, and tamathil. Tamathil is the plural of timthal. The word means images, figures, statues. The classical Arabic dictionaries, the lexicons, the tafsir literature all agree on this. These were sculpted figures, made of brass, of crystal, of marble, made for a prophet of Allah, by the command of Allah, with Allah's blessing. Now read what the classical Mufassir Jalalain said about this verse. He wrote plainly that the use of figures was not prohibited according to the law of Sulaiman. Some scholars argue this means the prohibition came later with the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. Others argue it shows that images themselves are not inherently forbidden, only certain kinds of images in certain contexts for certain purposes. But either way, one thing is undeniable. Allah in his own book describes a prophet being given a palace full of statues and frames it as a blessing. That alone should make every Muslim pause before declaring all images flatly haram. Now let's move from the Quran to history. In the deserts of modern Jordan, there's a small palace called Qusair Amra. It was built in the early 8th century, less than 100 years after the death of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. It was commissioned by the Umayyad Caliph Walid II, and every interior wall of that palace is covered in frescoes. Hunting scenes, bathing scenes, musicians, dancers, human figures, full bodies, full faces, painted in vivid colour across the ceilings and the walls. The rulers of the early Muslim world, ruling from a capital where the companions of the Prophet had just lived and died, commissioned figurative art on a massive scale. And it didn't stop there. For the next 1,000 years, Muslim civilizations produced some of the most extraordinary figurative art the world has ever seen. Persian miniatures, Mughal paintings, Ottoman miniatures, Arab miniatures, not made by outsiders, made by Muslims, commissioned by Muslim courts, often hanging in royal libraries next to copies of the Quran. Now I'm not saying every one of those Muslims was operating from correct fiqh. The point is bigger than that. The point is that for 1400 years, Muslim scholars and Muslim rulers and Muslim artists clearly didn't read the hadiths on images the way modern TikTok preachers read them. The tradition was always richer, more layered, more complicated than the flat, all drawing is haram message the internet pushes today. Which brings us to the scholarship itself, because this is where it gets really interesting. In 2013, Dar al-Ifta of Egypt, the official fatwa institution of one of the most important centers of Islamic learning in the world, issued a fatwa on drawing and photography. Their ruling is direct, and I'm paraphrasing the published text. They wrote that drawing humans is permissible according to a number of scholars, including Maliki scholars, some of the Salaf, the predecessors of this religion, and the Hanbali scholar Ibn Hamdan. Their reasoning, which they trace back to classical sources, is that the prohibition in the hadiths was restricted to complete statues meant to imitate Allah's creation, the kind that we use in idolatry. They cite Imam al-Nawawi's commentary on Sahih Muslim, which mentions that some of the Salaf considered the prohibition to apply only to three-dimensional figures that cast shadows, while flat images on paper or cloth fell outside the restriction. Their final ruling, in their own words, there is no objection to drawing animate beings such as humans, animals, and the like, whether from imagination, nature, or photographs, provided the drawings do not contain anything else prohibited, like nudity, or anything that incites desire. Now hear me out, because I know what some of you are thinking. Brother, you can't just pick the easiest opinion. You're right, you can't just pick whatever sounds good. But the question is, what is actually the easiest opinion? And what is actually the correct one? Because the position I just described isn't a fringe opinion. It traces back to Imam Malik's school, to several of the Salaf, to Hanbali jurists, and is held today by the official fatwa body of Egypt, and by parallel institutions across Sunni and Shia scholarship.
Make sure you follow his video after this one. I'll have his video in the description down below. Now that we all are in the same page, let us start with what many scholars did agree on what is halal and what is haram, and what are the things that could fall into usage cases. And fear not, I will be having a tier list on the screen to help make things way easier for all of us. Landscapes, objects, shapes, and colors are 100% halal, and everyone in Islam agrees on it. They do not have a soul, and they do not mimic Allah's creation. Not to mention, you can already get a lot of halal money from it without fear or guilt. But if we move to more mainstream, like anime characters and cartoons, it is where a lot of arguments started to happen, because something that looks like a human or an animal or anything that could have a soul, even in fiction, there is a long discussion about idolatry and what happened in the past versus now. That doesn't even touch on the topic of ego, idols, etc., etc. That's what we call it, idolatrous images, and in between. Okay, first things first. What is idolatrous images in general? Think of it like the statues of Roman gods in Rome or the Egyptian god statues in Egypt. To put it simply, it's an image of an idol that fights for a place in your heart versus having your heart to Allah. Images that imitate Allah's creation power. They are haram, and everyone under the sun agrees on it. Every madhab, every scholar, every century agrees on it. That's what our Prophet, peace and blessing be upon him, have warned his community about back in the day, when they had 360 actual idols. And finally, the last one, the in-between. That's actually what God scholars disagree on. Some say it's all haram by default, and others said it is not, depending on the usage and the reason behind it. Let me use my persona for example, Razimoto. She is a fictional persona. Like, of course. And here's the thing, she knows she is a fictional character. However, I use her as the face for my art/brand. I never use her for worship or admiration or anything that could fall into the haram category. She is made to help you understand things or help me translate things when I cannot put them in words. Or better example, stickman figure set is been used by our friend that I showed you the video of here. His stickman is to explain things, just like I showed you. And yes, different scholars have different opinions, and that's why I told you to do your research related to your madhab. And trust me, doing as much research as you can is the best thing you could do, regardless if it's for religion reasons or not. And it will save you a lot of headaches in the future, like it helped me as well. And of course, it is the reason why I wanted to make this video in the first place. There have been a lot of misunderstanding when it comes to the relationship between art and Islam. Fun fact, when I was doing this research, I did find out that why there is some limits on, and why many questions why Islam had limits on images itself, and why does it matter if it's have a face or not, and why Allah care if it have a face or not. Remember when I said there was 360 idols? Okay, imagine this. 14 centuries ago in Mecca, there was actually 360 idols around the Kaaba. And here's the sad part, none of them were meant to be idolized. They were memorials of the loved ones. Those who wanted to remember them have made these. However, time went on and every generation started to lose track on what are these meant to be. And unfortunately, they started to worship them, and the line between admiration and worship have fallen apart. Now, hear me out. I understand that some of you will be confused at why someone will drift away from admiration to worship, despite the fact that now we all know that there are things that will not and should not ever replace Allah in any shape or form. However, the deeper question of this video that is trying to ask, what is your art about? Is it about your ego or something else? I'm going to use myself as example yet again. When I was little, I always wanted to make animation and stories that related to my OCs and AUs, and of course back then things were different, like completely different. Even art community were super different. I felt like I am failing in so many things, like my art is haram, my stuff is haram, all this stuff. And of course some people say that your anatomy is bad and whatnot. Of course I was young, but the ideas was also different and the beliefs was different. So I stopped doing all these things and I decided to try to do what made me happy, regardless if I was successful or not. And of course when I stopped giving attention to these and started to follow what Islam is saying, it's 100% okay, and stayed away for what is not, things started to change for the better for me. And look at where I am right now. Yes, I know it could be different to each one of you, and some of you will think it's already over. Like I said, and I know I said it before many times, it is not black and white. And we did not even start to get even deeper into it. There is a lot I want to share it with you that I know you will find it interesting. Unfortunately, I have to take a pause here since the topic itself will be turned into parts. As much as I would personally love to turn it into a one massive video, like 2 hours, 1 hour kind of video, but I know it will be very hard than I originally imagined. Not to mention, I want to edit more than just this is halal, this is haram kind of series. I wanted to help all my brothers and sisters to be able to continue to create what they love and enjoy without feeling like they are crossing the line or feeling it's pulled them away from Allah. TLDR, art itself is not haram as long as you have the knowledge of what, why, and which scholar and madhab you are following. As long as your art and what's behind it does not distract you from your duties as a Muslim. I am aware that religious stuff is not my kind of style of making videos. However, this means a lot to me and I really wanted to share this and give hope to my Muslim brothers and sisters, and of course to my beloved followers who believed in me. Even if you are not a Muslim, I am more than happy that you stayed until this part of the video. It means a lot to me. If you made it this far in this video, I hope you really enjoyed and had fun in this video. If you want more of this, make sure you comment down below saying that you would like to see part 2, because like I said, I had done a lot of research and I wanted to add more than just this is haram, this is halal. Bye bye, be safe out there and take care.